Hello and welcome to Nese and Anything Goes Talk Show, and where we talk about a little bit of any and everything. So today we have a very special guest from the Shy. His name is Eric Arnold, and he is a licensed therapist, and he's special in addictions and a little bit of everything. So today we're going to talk about grieving the loss of a loved one. So we're going to dive right in and get some information that can shed some light on how people can cope with losses, depression, and anxiety. All of that plays a part in grieving. So, welcome, Eric, to Nisi Anything Goes. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Glad
Very welcome. Very welcome. Yeah. So, basically, um, mental health is very important in our culture and our community. But sometimes it's like pulling teeth trying to get someone to, come in and talk to a therapist about, just some different things that's going on in their life. So, can you tell me a little bit about why mental health is important in our Black community culture?
Sure, I can. Mental health has been stigmatized in our culture for many years. And as a result of that, people who suffer from mental health are afraid and avoid going to see therapists because of the stigma that gets attached to people who go see therapists and psychiatrists. And so that creates a problem in itself. But one of the things that I can say that's happening is that, people are becoming educated and becoming more aware of that mental health is a serious issue. You know, there are a lot of good organizations out there to provide information about mental health, to help people to understand that it's not a big problem. It's not a problem to have a problem. Just last week, I was watching a show, and the main character in the show had a brother that was struggling with mental health issues, and she was in denial about his issues until she actually had seen him in action. And that's what usually happens as well. Even when a person within the family system has a problem, people are subject to tell them things like, pull it together, man up, start acting like an adult, as opposed to maybe you need to see a psychiatrist, maybe you need to talk to somebody. That's usually the last course of action, and then unfortunately, up until recently, our only means and ways in our culture of going to see a therapist if people were mandated.
Well said, well said. Like I always say that it's okay to cry, scream, roll on the floor, do whatever it is that you need to do to kind of get it, to make you feel better.
Right.
So I know um, some people say, well, after a year, that should be a good time frame as far as grieving. So, is it a certain time frame that a person should grieve?
No. Grief isn't a one size fit all. There's no time frame on grief and loss. Uh, a person has the right to grieve as long as they want to or need to in that loss. What they need is support and not feel bad because they're experiencing the loss. Now, there is a new diagnosis that came out recently with the advent of the new DSM-5. It's called prolonged grief disorder. And that's when a person suffers from the loss of someone significant over a long period of time. And they seem to have a difficult time with processing that loss. and then you work with that individual in a different way than you would, well, let's say, to someone that just newly lost a family member, and you go through the 5 stages of grief and loss with them to help them to get to the 5th stage, which is acceptance. So no, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Like you stated, you know, if a person wants to roll all over the floor, or if a person just want to just have a sad disposition, that's their choice.
It's finally here.
Just popped in my head.
ElrodTVNetwork.com.
The opportunity to go back to the young Chris, and knowing what you know now, what advice or what would you tell your younger self that maybe you know now that you didn't know back then?
Watch your credit.
We could probably do a whole episode on that.
100% cotton one.
Free.
But this is
Yes, free to
basically
preview.
how you make the baby bear puffed. And always make sure you put your branding in there.
Entertainment exclusively found only on Elrod TV Network with new episodes weekly.
Which is the Ivy League myth.
Oh yeah, the big thing hanging in the balance. So probably good that we talk about
Go
the
to ElrodTVNetwork.com and experience it for yourself.
100%.
I think I have my
Right. True that. So when you were talking about the 5 stages of grief, for the people that don't know what the 5 stages of grief is, can you name the 5 stages? Sure. And which one that you feel is more harder than the others?
Well, you know what? Each stage, you know, has its level of difficulty. And when the loss initially happens, everybody initially experienced this loss with this stage, which is denial. You know, which is, you know, I can't believe that this person is really gone. So that's what that stage, you know, equates to. And you know, we can go back and forth with that, you know, many times. I mean, we can go over that stage can kick in, you know, years down the line where you still say, man, I can't believe she's gone, you know, and so, but yet, you know, you're able to process it and just go through and be able to get to the final stage, which is acceptance. The second stage, though, is primarily anger. And this is, you know, I'm angry that they're gone. And in this stage, you know, it can, you know, this person has a difficult time processing the loss, and they express it through this emotion, this anger. And then the third stage is bargaining. And this is when people say, you know, I promise I'll change if they come back. You know, why didn't you take me? Why did you take them? I'll gladly give my life for theirs. But as you know, loss is loss. When a person is gone, they're gone. You know, there's no switching places with them. But yet we still, as humans, we go to this stage because the loss hurts so badly. And then the next stage is the depression. Now, this is when a person begins to feel hopeless about the future without that person in their lives. And so it's during this stage that most people get stuck. You know, this is that stage that most people have a difficult time processing, is this stage right here, is depression. Because it's a struggle to come out of that sadness, you know, that people feel, you know, once they had a significant loss in their life. And what happens when they stay in that stage, they can actually rotate between depression and anger. You know, they get angry that they're gone, and then they get depressed because they understand that they're gone, and it saddens them, and they have a hard time processing that loss. And then, of course, the final stage is acceptance. And this is where the person makes a proclamation that they know that they can go on with their lives with the absence of that person. And so that's where people want to be. But at any given moment, at any given time, you can cycle through any one of these stages. So today I can be in acceptance. Tomorrow I can be in denial. And the next day I can be bargaining still.
Right.
And the day after that I can feel depressed. But ultimately, because I know that level of acceptance, I get there and I process, whether it's talking to my therapist, talking to another family member that's close to me, talking to my pastor, or talking to somebody that understands what I'm experiencing. I can get back my feet planted back into acceptance so that I, as an individual, can continue to keep living.
Right, exactly. I know sometimes when you experience the loss, whether it's loss of a parent, a sibling, a spouse, even an animal. I'm not an animal lover, so when people is grieving over their animal, their dog or their cat or their bird or whatever, uh, not being insensitive, but I guess because by me not being an animal lover, I don't understand their connection.
Sure.
But I know a lot of people talk about it that if that was their child, that was their baby. So I mean, even the loss of, your best friend or a good friend, that don't necessarily have to be uh your mother, father, sister, brother, anything like that. So
Right.
I do know, talking to different people, being in the funeral industry, talking to different people, they grieve differently depending on what the relationship is.
Right.
What the relationship is. So I know that you have played a big part in our family. When my niece passed, uh, my mom was like, okay, you and your sister, y'all gonna have to get some counseling. And I wasn't in denial of that, because I knew that, we needed some help. And we come from a long line of faith. We believe in prayer, we believe in God. But it's like at that particular time, we, not saying that we needed more than God, but we just needed, uh, I guess, somebody else to talk to kind of, get it out. I know
Process.
God hears everything that we're saying. But it just seemed like at that particular time, when you're praying, we want God to be microwave. We want him to come right now. I need you right this moment, right this moment. So what I loved about the agency, as soon as I called, we got an appointment like that next week. And I was, because a lot of people were saying that it's, hard to get into grief counseling and it takes a while, but it did not take your agency long at all. We were able to get in there and do the work. It wasn't just what you were telling us or what you were suggesting or giving us the coping skills. We had to do the work as well.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. They think, oh, well, I'm going to somebody and, they're giving me different strategies, but you have to do the work. You got to want to do better. And a loss is a loss, whether, whatever it is or whoever it is.
Right.
It could be a loss of a job, a loss of a car. A loss is a loss,
Right.
And but what I love about it, why I'm so adamant about mental health, is going through mortuary school. That was one of our classes we had to take, and how to understand working with these grieving families, that they're going through these different stages. So I kind of put myself in their shoes, how would I feel? That's just, I can get a little closer connection, to that person. So I love your different strategies and different stuff. And people don't realize that when you're having counseling or talking to somebody, it's not, I don't feel that it's a session. I just feel like we're just having a conversation.
Right.
I'm telling you how I feel. You recognize, you sympathize with how I feel. And then we're able to, move on. I'm able to move on past that. But I know, going through those 5 stages, it seemed like those 5 stages went on, it just feel like forever that they went on, and then it was like going back and forth, back and forth. It was the bargaining, it was the depression, it was everything. And it was like, okay, so if I'm on depression, my sister is on anger. When she on anger, I'm on depression. So it was like a whirlwind. We was going through different stages at different times.
Right, right.
So uh, that's why I felt that it was very important for mental health month, by this being the mental health awareness month. And I did wanted to kick it off with the grieving and loss of a loved one, because we have lost, several people in our life. And it used to be a point where I couldn't even say my baby's name. If anybody said anything about her, I was just like, jap out. But now I'm able to have a conversation and say Karina's name, and I don't, get a burst of emotion, because sometimes those emotions, they come out of nowhere. It's like one day I'm doing fine, I'm in the kitchen cooking, and I'm on the phone talking to my sister, and I'll have a moment, or she'll have a moment, and we'll both say where that came from. We wasn't even on that.
Right.
So can you kind of explain how do, just out of the blue, it just comes and just like hit you like a turn of bricks?
That's a good question, and the answer to that is, it's like with anything in our lives. I mean, you could be minding your business, and a familiar smell, a familiar sound, a familiar song will activate these memories, these implicit memories that are embedded in our subconscious, which causes us to have that flashback of that person or that individual that we lost. And it wasn't like you set out to start thinking about them, but it was one of these events or situations that activated that, which caused that thought to then come into your mind. You're like, what the heck that come from? I wasn't even thinking about that.
Exactly.
Now I'm sad,
Right.
But then, my thing is, when that happens, is to then start thinking about the good things, change that sadness into a laughing memory, something that person did when they were alive that tickled you, their humor, their style, the way that they act, the way that they responded to situations, or a situation that was, hilarious to you. And that brings a smile to your face. And because you did utilize, and we talked about utilizing spirituality as a means and ways, by being grateful and thanking God for allowing that person to cross your path, to be a part of your life, and that's the peace. That's where we find the peace, and being able to let go and have an acceptance. It's when we try to hold on to that thing that's gone, that we then, end up with all these challenges that we can't defeat. So we have to, recognize it when it happens, and then, have a strategy or a plan in place for when it happens. And that's, like I said, change the memory. In in utilizing what we call CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, when those what we would call the negative thoughts are called cognitive distortions, when those cognitive distortions come, what you want to do is to have a plan in place to be able to, decrease them when they happen. So whether that's, doing a cognitive restructuring, of your memory or that event, or just changing it altogether, like I stated, start thinking about something pleasant about that person or something funny they did, so that you can start laughing through your tears.
Right. Exactly. Very well said. We got a question. Lawrence want to know, he say, most men are taught not to show emotions. A lot of men will say, I'm good, even when they're not, especially in the Black community. How do you attempt to help that person that may be hurting?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of programs, a lot of workshops with men in the Black community, talking about grief and loss, talking about mental health, because like Lauren said, we're taught as men, and this is the population as a whole. This isn't just our culture. This is all culture of men. We're taught to suppress our emotions and our feelings. And we're taught, that it's not okay to talk about those things in a public setting with other men. And as a result of that, we suppress these feelings and emotions inside of us. And it makes it difficult for us to be pleasant, simply because the only emotion that we get permission to express is what? Anybody know?
I'm not going to say nothing.
The only emotion that we have permission to express. Go ahead, Crystal.
You have to type it in, Crystal.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell y'all what it is. That emotion is anger. That is the only emotion that men have permission to express. And as a result of that, that's the only thing that's our fallback is anger, because we're not nurtured through our lives to express love, sadness, any other emotion. We're not programmed. We're not conditioned for that. Right. And so because of that, I always liked when I work with young boys, because they have a difficult time talking about their feelings and emotions because of this stigma that has been placed on them. I tell them about when I was 4 years old and I was running down the street and I fell and I split my knee open, to the point that at this age I still got the scar. It was bleeding. It was bleeding profusely. Blood just rushing out of it, and I'm crying. Ah, ah. My older cousin, he was an adult. He was about 17, 18. I was about 4, and he looked at me and he said, "Boy, stop crying. You're a man." I mean, that's a oxymoron in itself, right?
Right. Exactly.
Boy, stop crying. You a man. And I looked up at him and I went, and that's how we're not even programmed to express pain. Right. You know what I'm saying? We even shut that down. We don't talk about what we're experiencing. We don't talk to people when we're grieving a loss, because we've been told by this society that it's not appropriate for men to do that. But I'm here to tell you that that's a lie. that the only way that we as men are going to be healthy is that we have to learn how to express our true feelings and our emotions with a group, whether it's a group in church, a men's group, but a group where you can be emotionally and mentally stable and healthy.
It's finally here.
Just popped in my head.
ElrodTVNetwork.com.
If you had the opportunity to go back to the young Chris and knowing what you know now, what advice or what would you tell your younger self that maybe you know now that you didn't know back then?
Watch your credit.
We could probably do a whole episode
Pay
on that.
attention.
100% cotton one.
Free.
But this is
Yes, free to
basically
preview.
how you make the baby bear cloth. And always make sure you put your branding in there.
Entertainment exclusively found only on Elrod TV Network with new episodes weekly.
Which is the Ivy League myth.
Oh yeah, the big thing hanging in the balance. So probably good that we talk about
Go
the
to
what is the
ElrodTVNetwork.com
Ivy League
and
myth.
experience it for yourself.
100%.
I think I have my
You just have to.
Yeah, that's true. I know growing up, my dad is old school, and if one of us was in the house and we was crying, he'd be like, man up. So it's like growing up is like he raised me tough like a boy. So I had this type of demeanor that, don't nothing hurt me. You can't hurt my feelings, none of that. But deep down inside, if you said 2 words to me, I'm crying in the inside, but I could never let you see me cry. As the commercial say, you never see you sweat.
Right.
I'm not, because, I'm macho, but being married and dating my husband, he have taught me, okay, you're a female, you soft. It's okay to be vulnerable. And like for men, it's okay to be vulnerable, because most of the time my dad said, well, I'm a man and men don't do this and men don't do that. And I think a lot of it comes from y'all pride. This is something that we don't talk about. We didn't talk about this back in the day, so we're not going to talk about it now. But like you said, me raising my boys, I wanted to raise my boys different so they can come in tune when something is bothering them, that it's okay to cry, because you're letting it out. It's an emotion. So sometimes my baby boy, when he's grieving a loss, like a couple of his friends just passed away last weekend, and he cried, he boo-hooed, and he wasn't embarrassed about it or nothing. And I'm like, that's natural. You don't have, I'm never going to tell him, you a man, shut up. No, I want you to be vulnerable. So when you get out in the world with a woman, that you can show her your vulnerability. You can show her that, okay, I'm a man, but I ain't no punk to a certain degree. So I love to see a man cry, to, express how they feel. And it shouldn't be suppressed because the way they were born, not the way they was born, but the way that they was raised, because, they don't want people to think I'm soft. No, you're not soft.
And it goes back to what you were saying, conditioning is how we conditioned. And you raised in that type of environment that conditions that fosters that, then that's what you exhibit. That's what you express to the world, is that suppression and that those closed feelings and emotions, which does not allow you to be vulnerable. And we all know, in order to be in a healthy relationship, both parties have to be vulnerable. You have to be. And if you're not, then you're cheating your partner from being able to know the real you.
Right. Exactly. I tell people a lot, if you've been like, sometimes me and mom, we'll be talking and I'll tell her, and I'm like, okay, they've been married 50 years and me and Willie been married 25 years. And I'm like, we didn't marry the same men 25 and 50 years ago. They're totally different. Like when me and Willie was dating, he didn't like tomatoes. He couldn't eat bananas, but now he can. And so we're still getting to know each other. It doesn't matter how long that we've been knowing each other since kids or how long that we've been married. We are still getting to know each other because things change, people change. And if he is the same man 25 years ago, something ain't right. That means it's no growth. Ain't nobody growing if you the same same person. Because at first, he would be, kind of mild and he wouldn't say nothing and he kind of, let me run over him a little bit. But now, it's like he'll stand up to me. He'll tell me, well, okay, well, baby, you made me feel this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't, I didn't want to make you feel that way. The last thing I want to do is to hurt you because you my spouse. But it just goes back to, saying that you're not the same person, so moving forward, you're still getting to know that person.
Exactly.
Still getting to know them. So no, I don't want to be feel like I'm cheating my spouse because I tell him basically everything. If I'm feeling some type of way, I want him to know I'm feeling some type of way. I used to think he was a mind reader. Well, because he been knowing me since I was a kid, you should know certain things. No, I have to be a big girl and say, baby, this is what's bothering me. How can we move on, or how can you help me move on from this? I don't want to, feel like I'm cheating you out of this situation.
Right.
So, but a lot of times it's being married so long, people stop working with each other. And instead of saying, well, okay, I'm having some issues, what do you think we need to do? Then they'll just close up, they'll just freeze up. And that's why I feel a lot of divorces come into play, because you're not getting to know, like you said, you're cheating your spouse.
Right. Well, the one thing that has to remain open is communication. And once the communication stops, then it's only a matter of time, for it crash and burn, realistic. So, and that's part of getting to know, like you said, constantly getting to know the person that you're with. And when you look at it, even in the content of grieving, we have to know our individual, our person, and make them feel that we're there to support them, no matter what they experience. And that might be just something as simple as grabbing their hand when they're having a moment, giving them a hug, telling them it's going to be okay, that it's okay for them to feel what they're feeling. Not it's going to be okay. It's okay to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Validate them, in that moment. When they have that moment. Yes, it happens. Like I stated, we never know when we're going to be hit with a memory.
Right.
We never know.
Right, exactly. Because I know for me, I knew that my hubby was supportive, but I kind of felt that, I guess because how I express myself and how he expressed himself, I know we are two different people. So I kind of felt like he wasn't grieving properly, or he wasn't grieving, I guess, the way that I thought he should have been grieving. But when it all boils down, he finally told me, he was like, well, baby, I knew that you was having a rough time. So I was there to support you. And I kind of, push my grief to the side to make sure that you and your sister was okay. So, and it really, really bothered me. And I even like got mad. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with you? Why you not crying? And, what is wrong with you?
Right.
And so when he finally told me, after the dust settled, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that
way. Right.
I knew you cared, but I didn't want to, seem like, well, okay, you didn't care, because at that point I did not I guess I wasn't thinking about people grieve differently.
Right. Exactly.
And I know that we are two different people. So yeah, and it kind of did, I wouldn't say it crashed and burned, but it kind of put a little tense on our marriage during that time, when Karina passed, because I felt like he didn't feel like I feel.
Right. Right. Right.
So once we talked about it, instead of me, being in my feelings and screaming and hollering and snotting and crying, and he was like, well, baby, everybody different. I was just trying to be there for you and your sister. So I kind of put my emotions to the side. And, I thank him for that. I really do, because he made me think about a lot of things, as far as, how supportive he was with just, just holding my hand, or just saying, baby, it's okay. If you want to cry, I'm here to cry. I'll change my shirt later on. It was okay. So I thank him for that. So going back into, the spouse, because I know, if certain parents lost their kids, and it put a damper on their marriage, because they both are grieving in their own way, and then the communication stops.
It does.
And that winds up in, divorce, or now, the house is just all devoured, but we still lost our child.
Right.
And we need to figure out a way to fix it.
Right. Right. How to continue. That is one of the most difficult loss that parents can experience. I mean, the first thought that comes to mind is, my child is supposed to bury me, parents, but that's the way the circular world operates. And in the spiritual world, anybody can go at any time. No man knows the day, the hour, or the moment. And so we don't know when our assignments are up and when it's our time. And that goes for our children as well. We hope that everybody lives a nice, long, fruitful life, that's in our immediate circle, but we have no control or power over that.
Right.
So, just learning how to process that, appropriately. Urban Yalom said that when we as people learn how to accept death as a way of life, that's when we really begin to live. Because we don't live with limitations, and we don't live in fear, because it's inevitable. None of us is going to get out of this alive, so fretting over it and worrying about it is not going to, stop it from happening. So when you accept it, it's just like the stages. Once you accept death as a part of life, it's at that moment that you begin to live to its fullest. And we've all heard the old saying, live today as if it was the last day of your life. And we can do that every day responsibly.
Right.
We can. When most people take it out of its literal content, and they start, well, that's why I drink. I mean, I might die today. They might be that day. But what if it ain't?
Right. You killing yourself slowly.
What if it ain't today? What if it ain't next year? What if it ain't 10 years from now? So then you will be stuck in this place, waiting for something that you have no control over, to happen.
Exactly.
Live, live.
Yeah, and enjoy your life to the fullest. I know, being when I first started in the funeral industry, I was just burying older people. They was just, passing away from old age or
Right.
heart attacks, and then kids, it was they call it CIS, crib death. But as I uh, start to become a veteran in the field, it was every now and again somebody a drug overdose or get hit by a car. But now it's like, what happened? What really happened is like we losing our kids. Parents is burying kids.
Right.
I mean, and they're not living to get sometimes past 6 or 7. And it's like, my God, what have this came to? Yeah, you want to be like, okay, well, I'm supposed to bury my parents, or the parents feel that the kids supposed to bury them. But
Very
now
good.
it's a total different ball game, totally different.
Right. It is.
It's just totally different. So, what made you get into the mental health field?
It's funny you should ask. This right here. I lost my child.
Okay.
22, and she died in a fire. To my 2-year-old daughter, and it devastated me. And nobody would hear me. I didn't like the question asked earlier about men. I was in that mode that men don't talk about their feelings and emotions. So I had all these pent up emotions inside of me, and I was always angry, mad at the world, and my mom kept telling me, "You need to go see a therapist. You need to go talk to somebody." And I told her, "No, I'm not going to talk to nobody. For what? What is that going to do? Talk to a therapist? I am not trying to talk to no stranger about what's going on with me." But I eventually succumbed to it. And when I came to it, when I came around and came to following her suggestion, it was the greatest thing that I ever did. And that therapist helped. I used to tell her, tease her all the time, because we actually ended up becoming good friends. I teased her all the time just because when we got through, she said, "Now that you've finished therapy, what are your plans?" I said, "I'm gonna go back to school and do what you do." I say, and now that I've experienced this, I know that it works. You know what I'm saying? If you do the work, and so because how people, man, it don't work. That don't. But they didn't tell you that they didn't do the work. They didn't tell you they didn't do the exercises that the therapist suggested they do to get them to the place that brings about the change.
Exactly.
And so she was instrumental in helping me to get back in school and get my process going, and like I said, as a result of that, we became really good friends. So, but that's how I got into it, because I then learned firsthand that it really works.
Oh yeah.
It really works.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because I'll say, so I know you're a man of faith. I know you believe in God. And that was one of the qualifications when I was looking for a counselor is A, he had to be African American. B, he had to believe in God and have to have children and be married or almost about to be, to be able to understand. Because if I'm married and you're not, how can you give me advice about marriage and you never been married?
Right.
I mean, I could give you advice about being single because I was single, but not being married. So I think it might have been, how long has it been?
It's been a while.
7 years, 8 years, somewhere like that, almost 10 years.
Almost.
And so how many times a day you have to pray? Because you're listening to people all day long.
Uh-huh.
How do you keep your sanity?
You know what? That's a good question. And what I do is I know how to detach, myself at the end of the day. When I'm in session, I'm all in, and I'm 110% engaged. But when it ends, when my day ends, I leave everything in my office. I don't take it home with me. I don't take it in the car with me. I don't take it past the threshold.
Right.
I don't bring it home. And that helps to maintain my sanity. And I've been doing this almost 30 years. So I really enjoy doing what I do. And the day that ends, the day that the joy ends, then that's the day that I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell that, not that you enjoy, but that's your passion.
Right.
That's your calling. Everybody have they calling. Like you said, that the young lady who um, coached you through, she gave you motivation that you can help other people.
Right. If you'd have asked me when I was a freshman or sophomore in college, if I'd have thought about being a therapist, I'd have laughed at you. I'd have told you you've lost your mind. You probably be a therapist. There's no way I'm gonna do that, man. Sit in the room 8 hours, 10 hours a day, listen to other people's stuff, man. I ain't finna do that. And that would have been then. But after having such a horrendous experience, I became a different person. I became open-minded because what I wanted more than anything else was a solution. I wanted the pain to stop. You know what I'm saying? That I was experiencing, and everything that I was doing wasn't helping. It wasn't stopping the pain.
Okay.
But when I went to therapy, it did. And so I always recommend, therapy as a means and ways, for people, just I always tell them have an open mind,
Mhm.
and I tell them most importantly that it's work. I'm not even going to sit here and tell you it's not. Most people have this misconception that therapy is just going in and just emoting to the therapist, and then you leave with this frothy emotional appeal only to feel the same way 3-4 days later just because you get it off your chest.
Right.
We're looking for a more permanent solution. That means that there's some things that have to be done to help to address the concern, the issue that brings you to the office in the first place.
Right. Exactly. So before we close, can you give the people a couple of good coping skills if they're experiencing loss, or are they in between sessions with their counselor?
Well, I actually had prepared a theme of 9 steps that people can do to take care of themselves. And most importantly, the first one is telling yourself that you do matter. Because you matter, it's important to spend time and energy on helping yourself feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Be extra nice to yourself. Do things that you enjoy that help you to relax and unwind. Be patient with yourself. Accept that you enjoy that help and that you enjoy relaxing. Accept that you will make mistakes. Know that you can't please everyone, and always allow time to grieve. Know that things will get better, even though it might take a while. Invest in yourself. Follow your dreams. Study things that interest you. Establish a faith walk for yourself. Recognize when you are in problems over your head. Sometimes this means that you might need to admit that you need someone to throw you a safety line. That could include working with a therapist, talking to a trusted friend, or going to a support group. Say no to situations or people that you know could trigger you in a negative way. Self-care means that you protect yourself so that you can build a stronger future for yourself. Think about things that happened in the past and learn from them so that you won't have to repeat the same patterns. Self-care means taking time to really evaluate if situations and relationships are healthy and if they should continue. Focus forward. Self-care means moving ahead, not looking back, making goals for tomorrow or next week are the first steps toward the future. And most importantly, be proud of yourself. Declare victory when things go well. Recognize when you make good choices or when you succeed at something that you have been working hard toward. So that's, that self-care is so important, regardless of what you're recovering from, whether it's the loss of a family member, struggles with addiction, dealing with anxiety or depression. These self-care methods are designed to help you to start feeling better about yourself, and that's the key to bring about the change that people want.
Very well, very well said. Yes, 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 yes. So this is going to conclude our show. Thank you, Eric, for shining some light on the grieving, the loss of a loved one. This show comes on the first and the third Sunday of the month. So May the 21st, we will have Dr. Willie Miles, and he's going to talk about suicide, anxiety, depression in adults and in children, especially young males.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget to tune in to that show. So I always say before I end, push, 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 pray until something happens. I love you guys. I hope you got something from this. If you have any questions, you can always email me or text me or whatever. So take care of yourself until next time. Thank you for watching Nese and Anything Goes. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.